Welcome to Psych Sessions Careers, a podcast about how students can identify and prepare for careers that fit their unique interests and how instructors can help. I'm your host, Stacey Spencer. Whether you're a student trying to figure out what you'll do with your undergraduate psychology degree, an instructor who's looking to add to what you're already doing to support career preparation, or an instructor who wants to help but doesn't know where to start, these conversations are for you. Let's talk about careers. Hi, Kris Vespia. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
I am too. I think this should be a lot of fun.
So I'm going to start with introducing you. You're at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. Mm-hmm. You're the director of the Center for the Advancement of Teaching and Learning. And you write that as CATL. Do you actually say it as an acronym?
We actually do pronounce it as cattle. And so we enjoy playing with cow graphics and we have a blog called The Cowbell. We embrace it.
I love it. I love it. I'm at a university that uses a lot of initials and acronyms. And so I really appreciate a good one. Your doctoral degree is in counseling psychology from the University of Iowa.
Yes.
And you have taught courses. You may continue to teach courses. I know you have a new role, but you have taught courses related to psychopathology and psychotherapy and cultural diversity. Are there other courses that you've also taught?
I have also taught cultural psychology. I teach also a multicultural counseling and mental health course. I teach a capstone called Explorations of Madness.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. And I also, for a time, taught a 1-credit professional development type course here at UWGB that is no longer part of our curriculum. Mm-hmm. So a variety of different things over time.
Great. And your scholarship is in teaching and learning, college student mental health, the intersection of culture and mental health. I mean, that's reflected in the courses that you've listed. I love that. And then career development as well.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about your current role. And then I kind of want to go back to what you were doing before you were in the Center for the Advancement. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say cattle before you were in the cattle. Yeah. All right. So tell me about your current role.
My current role is really a lot of fun and it draws on a lot of my psychology background in many ways. But my job is to lead a team of professionals on this campus that help all of our instructors to provide excellence in their instruction. Really, the goal, of course, is for our students to have a more successful experience and to enhance their learning. But it's been really fun for me to think about impacting students in that way, rather than the ones just sitting directly in front of me. But as you might imagine, I'm doing things like learning communities where I'm using my group facilitation skills and lots of one-on-one consultations, and also really trying to motivate instructors to try new things and to use new technologies. And there's some psychology involved in that from time to time.
Right. And you're working with faculty across campus. So, you're used to your psychology colleagues, but then you get to see what it's like interacting with faculty who really come from different backgrounds in terms of their expertise or their ideas about what good teaching looks like. So I'm sure you tap into a lot of your counseling skills and your understanding of the science of teaching and learning. So that's, I think, really great. I'm so proud to see so many of our colleagues across, campuses moving into these types of leadership roles in teaching and learning.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see and to see then that those folks are contributing more to the scholarship of teaching and learning in psychology as well as in general. But there's really quite a community of psychologists at this point who are leading teaching and learning centers across the country. So
it's wonderful. And you talked about motivating instructors to try new things. And I think that's related to what we're going to be talking about today, is you and I have a passion for career preparation and career development. And it's tough. We have colleagues who they like the idea of helping, but they panic a little bit about that. So trying to kind of bridge that concern with the support, right? So what can we do that's appropriate? We've got great ethical standards. We don't want to be doing something we're not qualified to do, but helping people figure out, well, what can you do and what little things can you do that will go a long way with our students? So I'm really excited. So let's talk about before you had this role. And by the way, how long have you been in this role?
I have been in this role for 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's not that long.
Not that long. I had volunteered to take it on an interim basis when the regular director was going to go on sabbatical. She chose to go on sabbatical in spring of 2020.
Oh.
Which good for her. And also sad for her because her sabbatical, as you might imagine, was not at all what she expected it to be. But that does mean that I was in charge at the time that we shifted the university to remote instruction. So that was one of the more interesting experiences. I mean, for all of us, right? What a challenge.
But to be in that center that is there to support faculty when everyone needed to kind of quickly develop a skill set. So I can only imagine what that was like. Were you teaching at the same time?
I was teaching.
Wow.
I was not teaching full time, but I was teaching 2 classes, and I had some honor students and independent students that I was supporting. And but I have an amazing team, and we also had instructors and administrators who stepped up and volunteered to be mentors and coaches to folks who didn't have as much experience and whatnot. It was really, although terrifying at various times, it was a beautiful thing to see in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so. That I like that. That was true for our campus as well. So now let's talk about that prior role. What were you doing in the psychology department? What were your responsibilities then?
So immediately before I took this role, I was professor of psychology, but I also ran what we called our Student Success Center. And it was really a center in name only. It's not like we had a suite of offices or anything like that. But we did have me and a group of interns who were responsible for meeting with anyone who wanted to declare a psychology major and doing an orientation to the major, matching them up with an advisor, all those sorts of things. And those interns also were available to meet with students who had questions, to do a little bit of peer mentoring. I was available as well. We did course, we really did a support group across the year for people who were applying to graduate school and went through the process of that with them. And, that was a lot of fun. It was also a challenge in that center started, and I was not the first person who ran it, but it started pre-pandemic. And so students really were dropping by, and we had an office, and it was actually right next door to mine, and I could see the flow of traffic in and out. And moving to virtual services for that was a challenge.
Well, there was so much else going on virtually that I think we were all sort of getting tapped out on how much time we're spending in that virtual world. So I can understand how that would happen. I think it speaks to the challenge of the career development, career preparation, getting connected with the major and really understanding what that curriculum looks like and getting all those questions answered. It really speaks to the complexity of that and, looking for a model that will be sustainable and practical. And things do change. And I don't know what your campus is like. I don't like saying post-COVID yet, but as we're kind of getting back to the new, I think most campuses are not going back to exactly the way they were before. So some things are lost and some things are on hold as we're trying to figure out how are we going to do that now. And so I think this is a really good time for you and I to be talking about, well, what can this look like? And I think we'd both agree there isn't one perfect solution, that it really is context dependent. It depends on institutional resources, faculty resources, what the curriculum looks like, how fixed a curriculum might be for psychology majors. But when we're trying to support career preparation, and I use that word as my most generic, because I see career preparation as both career exploration and professional development. And I see that as exploring, looking for careers of best fit for the individual. And then the professional development really around recognizing the skills employers value and working on those skills. And as we're doing that, we tend to figure out things we like more than other tasks, more than other environments. So it's a whole big process. Well, tell me about the students at your institution, the characteristics overall. What does the student body look like there?
About 50% or slightly more first generation college students. And we're essentially at, we've not always been this way, but at this point, we are essentially an access institution, meaning that really, as long as you have the equivalent of a high school diploma, we want to provide an education for everybody who wants one, which is an exciting mission to be a part of. I'm a first generation college student myself.
Me too.
I feel, there you go. So I feel a real sense of purpose in doing that and trying to demystify some of our hidden curriculum, which exists not only in our classes, but also in things like graduate school applications and career options, and all of those different kinds of things. We have primarily regionally based students. So we have a 16 county approximately footprint that we cover. We have a main campus here in Green Bay, but we also have campuses in Marinette, Manitowoc, and Sheboygan, other communities along the lake. And so most of our students come from that footprint, but certainly we have students from across the country, and we have everything from the traditional 18-year-old college freshman to 60-year-old returning students. And so it's really a mix.
Yeah. I think part of my interest in the career preparation, why that's been something I've been so fascinated by and wanted to support so desperately, is because as a first generation college student, and I'm not going to speak for everyone else, but there's a bit of a pressure to make it worthwhile. That if you're going to invest in it, the expectation is you're going to have something very specific you will do with it. And for me as a first gen, my mother didn't understand when I was all excited and called and said, I know what I'm going to major in. And her response was, well, you have to go to graduate school, and will I have to pay for that? And legitimate questions, but that's very much more the mindset is very practical. And there's a lot of pressure. And there's also pressure from outside of the institution. We know that there are government officials out there who make claims about the psychology major specifically, but the liberal arts degrees more generally. We know that some employers aren't quite clear on what the psychology major has to offer until they hire one, and then they're thrilled. We do know that they tend to be very excited when they see what the psychology majors bring to the table across work domains, not just things in mental health. But of course, then we have the parents and the students and the jabs. You can't do anything with a bachelor's degree in psychology. It's this assumption everyone walks around with. And so there's so much pressure on the students from so many different angles. And, get into college and now you're there. Yes, but what are you going to do with that? So really unpacking that is important. And then how many psychology majors are there in your psych department?
You know what? I would have to look up that exact number at this point, but we are about the second largest program on campus. So, and we have both a fully virtual and a fully face-to-face version of the major, and people who
take courses out of both. Wow, that must make enrollment management very challenging, knowing how many people will be in which type of course. So,
absolutely. And again, like you, I don't really like to use the term post-COVID. But since the height of the pandemic, as people have come back, one of the things that we have seen is that our traditionally aged college students, including many who are living in our residence halls, are enrolling in online classes at a faster rate than they're enrolling in face-to-face classes. And so that also changes the mix as we try to anticipate what's going to fill and what isn't, how, and
yeah. But before we talk about your thoughts on how to infuse this career development throughout the curriculum, I'm wondering, was there a moment in time when you were young that somebody asked you to claim what you were going to be when you grew up? Young, like it could be I like to say as early as kindergarten because that's my experience. But do you recall that first time somebody asked you to state what you were going to do when you grew up?
Oh, I'm sure I had to have been in elementary school. And my mother was a nurse, and I used to love dressing up for Halloween with her nursing cap. It was very cool back in the day when they wore the white caps and everything. Right. And so I know there was a time in my life when I talked about that. But I remember taking my first career interest inventory when I was in 8th grade. And I have no idea at this point which one it was. And that kind of puzzles me because I know the career interest inventory pretty well. But I do remember quite clearly that my highest scoring occupation was none, but NUN, not NONE.
It was none. I love that.
And I was like, I don't think so. But yeah. So anyway, I was destined at that point, apparently, for the clergy. That did not happen. And here I am today, but it starts so early. And, it breaks my heart that students come to college if they're traditionally aged at 18, and we ask them from day one to introduce themselves, and we expect it to be not name, rank, and serial number, but name, dorm, and major.
Right.
And developmentally, who knows? And the job market is so much different today. And the first job that you get out of college, the likelihood that that's going to be the last job that you hold, or that you're going to retire with a company that you worked at for 30 years is just, it seems to me so minuscule at this point that to expect certitude from young adults about something that they're probably going to have to make a series of choices about over their lifetime.
Right. And I think there's an interesting difference in how we word things. Once you're in that major, what are you going to do when you finish is very different from what are you going to be. And so we, as professors, have an occupational title that kind of fits with the what are you going to be, but it also implies that's who you are, as opposed to what your job might entail, right? And so thinking about, I'm searching, I'm seeking, I'm pursuing this title versus the tasks. What will I be doing? And exploring what does that title include? And then, of course, anyone who's listened to more of one of these episodes will get used to the fact that I talk about the job titles are just not something that reflects the occupational titles, and they differ so much you could have the same description of responsibilities and the same tasks with totally different titles used by different employers, or you could have the same job title used for very different positions at different employers, and sometimes the same employer. There is a university that uses Student Services Specialist 3, which means nothing, but it includes this kind of level of experience that can be applied to a variety of units on campus. And so it really isn't clear at all what that's for.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about your idea. In an ideal world, what would a career advising model look like within a department? or within a student's time as a college student? What would that look like?
So I guess I have a couple of answers to that. In a really ideal world, if we have the resources to do it, I love the idea of having, much as it sounds like you do, a sequence of career development courses along the time that someone is in the psychology major. I think that that's fantastic. The reality that we get hit with here, at least, is that we just don't have the resources to do it. We don't have the instructional resources available to us. And we have tried that. I mean, I taught one of those one credit courses once upon a time, and it just was not something we could do. What I have sort of settled on in a compromised world is that I would at least like to see us infuse career content into our curriculum, particularly our required courses. Because what worries me, and if we go back to that first generation college student kind of thing, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
And because I didn't, I wouldn't have asked the question. And if what we do is rely on people to get this in individual advising sessions, quality of advising, ability for students to ask the things that they may need to know, all of those things are going to vary quite dramatically. If we put it in the curriculum, then hopefully we're ensuring some degree of equity within that experience. And we don't have to worry quite as much about invisible curriculum type issues.
I love that. I mean, picking those courses that we know are required at a minimum. And then there are ways that there could be content courses students might choose from, maybe a collection that, they're fulfilling some category of courses, or it's truly elective for them, where they can be exploring some career options related to that content. One thing I always say is, how do we expect students to know what they want to do with that major if they haven't taken but maybe an intro to psych course in high school? They don't know what psychology is. And when you get to, I always use human development as my example, is, a lot of students take the course and they love it. They're like, wow, I've never thought about this. What can I do with it besides be a child psychologist? I'll have to be a child psychologist. That's the oversimplification of it. And so, we could do that with health psychology. They may take a health psych class and say, oh, I love that, so I have to be a health psychologist. And so it just kind of but within those content courses, I think we could do very simple things to kind of draw that interest out and help students connect with, well, how can I apply the concepts? How can I apply the skills that I might be developing in this specific course? And by the way, there are courses they're developing skills where they may not love the content as much as something else, but the skills are what's relevant to the employers.
Yeah. Well, I think part of what ended up leading me in this direction was sadness that we weren't going to do a career-focused course anymore, but also I was the only clinician in my unit for a time. And, we had hundreds of majors.
Right.
I couldn't see them all individually. And so as a survival mechanism, right, and as a way of trying to serve as many of them as I possibly could, because I wanted to. I mean, if I could have seen them all individually, I would have. I started infusing information about mental health careers in my counseling and psychotherapy class, because how much sense does that make? Let's talk about the different kinds of mental health professionals and paraprofessionals and what they can do and can't do, and the differences in their education and training, and so on and so on. So I think there are natural content courses where things like that can be done.
Have you done any assessment through that careers course or in your other courses, assessments where students can identify their areas of interest and strengths and values. Have you done that in any of your courses?
I mean, I do a beginning of semester pre-survey type thing where I'm gathering information about background and interests and you name it. It's not specifically career focused, but that's a piece of what we're getting. And I'm always asking folks, so what do you think you want to do? And what draws you to that area? Because if nothing else, I like to use that information to get a sense. Some of the psych classes that I teach, yeah, they have majors, but they also bring in like cultural psychology, brings in business majors and people who want to be physical therapists and dietitians and you name it. And so it's very helpful to know where they see themselves headed. And then I can try to use examples that are relevant to their field as I'm teaching. So,
and I can see that there could easily be an activity in class or an assignment where students stop and think and try to make connections between the concepts and the skills they're developing and whatever their career interest might be. So what is the relevance of this to physical therapy? The more that students can articulate those connections, we have that issue of, well, what is psychology? They take psychology courses and even our majors leave not knowing what psychology really is. They think it's mental health. They walk away with that still kind of oversimplified view of what the big umbrella represents. And so I think anytime we have that opportunity to give them a chance to articulate it, to say, this is what I've gotten out of this course that I can use in these ways, the applications to a specific career path, that's the conversation we're having, but it could be other kinds of connections that are personally meaningful for them. So absolutely.
Well, and I have to say one of my favorite activities across courses that I like to do with students, because most of them have not seen this, is to go to our institution's first destination survey data and to show them, we have it online. And so students can go and they can look for the past several years, what are the first reported jobs of psychology majors, right? And we go through that as an exercise. For one thing, to help them understand that no, not everybody goes on to graduate school.
Right.
To also help them understand that, yeah, there's a good chunk of folks who do mental health related things, but there's also a really good chunk of folks who do business related jobs and another group that do education related jobs. And it's very eye-opening to them. One of the first years that I did this, I was looking for human development majors at the time, not just psychology majors. And one of the first jobs was being the kids and safety seats coordinator for the American Red Cross. Now, until I read this particular result, I didn't know there was such a thing as a kids and safety seats coordinator. But, it makes perfectly good sense to me that a human development major would end up doing that. But it was a wonderful example to be able to share with students year after year of, look, I can't give you a list. I can't tell you this is what you're constrained to. What I can tell you is you're developing this and this and this and this skill and these, pieces of knowledge. You're going to be able to apply them to a lot of different things and probably to careers that don't even exist.
Right. That don't exist yet. We don't know yet. But to be thinking very differently about what they're getting through the major, we have this checkbox approach. I think it's maybe just a normal way of organizing our world as students and as faculty. Here are the things you need to accomplish. But in doing so, kind of stepping away from, well, why? Why am I taking these courses and what am I getting from them? Not hurrying to finish them to take a break, right? Semester's ending, wrap it up, now I go on. But really giving that moment in that class for students to stop and reflect and connect. I want to go back to the one career course issue that a lot of institutions have. So when people listen to these recordings, we can't do that because of resources. It is resource substantial. There's a lot that goes into that, and it can be time of faculty. It can be scheduling. For some schools, it could be classroom space. How can you have enough, and how big would those sections be? The bigger problem, if you're only able to offer one, is where do you put it When do they take it? Because if we're thinking developmentally, we don't know. Every student needs something at a different time. And that's the luxury of the way I do it is they have a course every year that they're bringing those experiences forward, but I can send them back. So, you kind of hit a wall here. Let's go back. Or you weren't ready the first time I asked you to do these things. Let's do them again so that you can be thinking about who you are and what's a good fit for you. Sometimes they need to shake that expectation that they had. They finally have information that tells them that might not be the right path for them. They finally said that, but they weren't looking at anything else. Mm-hmm. I do have my students compare and contrast, and I think that's something else we could easily put into our content courses. Compare and contrast. Find 2 careers that are interesting that would fit into this content area, or using the skills that you've developed this semester. Find 2 jobs. So whether it be occupation or job, and compare and contrast those, and then present that so they can see all of the things that other people were interested in. And we know that's when sometimes the light bulbs really go on. Wait, I can't even remember the title of the position you named about the seat safety Red Cross job, but wait, there are things like that. I would love to contribute to my community that way, but also have that be my job would be really fun and exciting. It really, when students see what's actually out there, that's the problem we have. The abstract is absolutely overwhelming. When they start to see people like me who graduated and are doing things, they have these jobs and they don't have to have these fancy titles to look interesting. That brings an incredible sense of relief. For some, it lights the fire, and others, it's even more stressful because now there's a lot of things they're interested in doing and they don't know how to narrow it down. But that's what we're there for, just to support, encourage. I think the thing that also I see with faculty when I bring up supporting career exploration, they're much more comfortable with professional development. Let's be honest. Our colleagues understand communication and critical thinking and problem solving and teamwork, collaboration. We get that. But when we're talking about how do I help them pick what their future will be, we shouldn't expect to do that. We shouldn't expect to give a long list. The list we know, I don't even think we could put a number on it, because it's how you would like to apply what you've taken that you loved from this major.
And how many of us never worked with our bachelor's degrees? Right. I think that too gets many people anxious.
Yeah.
Well, I never had to look for a job with my undergraduate degree because I went right on to graduate school. And then the thought of modeling and guiding a student through that process that they never even did themselves feels daunting. And if I can tie my current job to my previous one, as professors, we don't typically get training in how to teach.
That's right.
Well, goodness knows if we don't get training in how to teach, we don't get training in how to advise. I mean, that was part of my job when I was a student success coordinator, was I was also supposed to be helping to train our faculty advisors. But most of us don't have that background. Right. I luck in some ways to the fact that as someone who has a master's in counseling and a PhD in counseling psychology, that's a field that is historically tied to career development.
Right.
And so I took classes in career development. And when I was doing my practica and my internship, I had to be a career counselor. As I was doing my master's degree at UW-Madison, my work study job as a master's student was being a guidance assistant over in the counseling center. And so I interpreted strong interest inventory results for any undergrad who came into the counseling center and said, I don't know what to major in. They were handed an interest inventory and I got to see them.
Mm-hmm.
That at least gives me some sense of efficacy in doing that work. But I also think when you have someone in your department who has a little bit of training, it becomes easier for you to then step back a little bit.
It is easier. And then it becomes their responsibility. And one person, when you have a large department, a lot of majors, that becomes very challenging. And I would encourage those individuals to be thinking about, how can I support my colleagues so they can sprinkle it in. So what is one takeaway that you would want faculty listeners to get from this? That something simple that anybody could put into a course that would help them help their students think about what they may do with their major.
In teaching and learning literature, we talk a lot about plus ones. That you don't have to reinvent your course every time you teach it. But what's one new thing you could do this semester? Or what's one new assignment you could try, or whatever that may be? And I think if all of us as instructors could think of one way, one assignment, one reading that could in some way relate to career development or providing relevant career information to our students, that would be a wonderful gift. Because if all of us did that in our departments, imagine all those plus ones put together for our students, right?
I like that. And it's bringing it to the conversation, not just across the curriculum, but much more frequently. It's that students are there thinking, what am I going to do with all of this? And once they settle in and they're part of the community and all that excitement of the transition and being in college, there is that reality of, okay, well, I'm here for other reasons that follow graduation. And so for us to acknowledge that and give them an opportunity to be thinking about that many times, I love that plus one. That's great. What's one thing?
Well, and if you have a wonderful chair, as we do, our chair of psychology, I'll give her a shout out, Georgina Wilson Dunges. She created a Canvas course for our students that has all sorts of information about different careers and writing a resume and, all these sorts of things that we've curated together and that she put together in this Canvas shell, and is able to then put announcements in there when there are events happening that might be relevant to this. You take something like that, you use people who have some expertise to contribute to the content of it. And then you have everybody else just trying to do a little thing. I mean, heck, if you're a stats instructor, just use some vocational data, use some salary data, use, I don't know, employment rate data as your unit of analysis. It doesn't have to be something grand.
I like that too. And I think for people to think this is something that will grow over time. I tend to think, I want it all perfect right away. But the evolution over time and just having, checking in, and you could create assignments for students to contribute to that course or that shell in the learning management system. You could have in any particular course, here are some descriptions of things that someone might do if they're particularly interested in this kind of topic within the field, or if they have very strong skills in a particular area that they'd like to be able to use in a job. I love that. And what about students? So let's say there's a student listening who doesn't have faculty who are ready yet, or who have a system yet to support them. What is something a student could do today to kind of kickstart their career exploration and professional development?
I think there are two things that I might recommend. One is, if your institution does publish their first destination survey data, take a look. I mean, just go and actually find out what are some of the first jobs of psychology majors at your institution. It'll be a fun activity. But, one of the infusion things that I do is when I teach my capstone course, I have my students do an e-portfolio. And I ask them to organize that e-portfolio around the 5 learning goals for psychology, and to have a little, even just paragraph or less reflection on why they want to use this as an artifact in their e-portfolio and what skills or other attributes it demonstrates. Going through that isn't so much because I think students are going to use those e-portfolios in their job search. It's really much more about allowing them to reflect on all of the different knowledge, skills, attributes that they have and that they have gained over the course of their education. And so I would used to tell my advisees, I want you to keep a folder. And, today that's passe, but I want you to keep a folder and the things that you're proud of and the professional developments you go to or the certificate you get at work. I want you to put all of those in a folder. And I don't care if you don't look at that folder until you're about ready to graduate. I want you to have that collection to reflect back on. And one of the things that really trips students up with this e-portfolio is they'll look at me and they'll say, but that stuff was 3 laptops ago.
Yeah. Yep.
Or it would, because people don't save their work.
Mm-hmm.
And in many cases, they don't want to. It's no, that semester is over. And my way of, celebrating is to destroy everything related to it. And, that makes my heart hurt a little bit. And so keep your work.
I think that's great advice. And the folder now can be in a cloud storage space, whatever you might use for cloud storage. Please use cloud storage, whatever cloud you use. And please think about how you're naming those files. I love it when in my learning management system, I get 20 assignments that say presentation 1. Is it really saved as presentation 1?
Presentation 1.
This is your 3rd year. I don't think that's presentation 1, which tells me the other presentations don't exist anymore. They've been uploaded somewhere and now I'm clearing out space. So such great advice for students who might be listening is keep what you have. And of course, maybe from your first year of college, you replace those works with something you're more proud of or is more complex or maybe better writing, whatever it might be, or a topic you liked more. And I see a lot more instructors using different types of products than they may have used in the past. So we're not just all having students write the traditional term paper or library research paper or give the traditional stand-up slide presentation. And by the way, if you give a great slide presentation, but it wasn't recorded, record your own. Record it for yourself because you can record right over that and save that. Like you said, people may not ever see those pieces of evidence, but it's such an important reminder when you're applying for a job. What did I demonstrate in each of these things that employers would value? We know the kinds of questions that are asked in interviews. They're behavioral questions. Tell me about a situation where you were working as part of a team and there was conflict. What did you do? And so keeping record of those experiences along with the product of that teamwork is also very, very valuable because those are important skills. So,
and
go ahead.
I was just going to say very quickly, even if you kind of cringe looking at your first year composition paper, still keep it because you then have the experience of reading your senior year paper and comparing those two and really then having tangible evidence of how you've grown.
I love that.
In that time.
And I mean, we could keep going on with the ands and ands and ands. And when given an opportunity to choose a topic, really think about it. What's something you might enjoy talking to somebody else about when they ask you about your interests? So yes, I wrote this paper, but this topic is fascinating. It's something I was really excited about. We know the more we're excited about the topic, typically the better the product in the end, because we're excited to find the resources. We like writing about it. We like pulling it together. It makes sense to us. All right. Would you like to play a game?
Of course.
All right. So for you, the game is I have several bachelor level jobs. I'm going to read the qualifications. We already know they're bachelor's level. I'm going to read the qualifications and you're going to tell me what the job title is. I'm not reading the job description, just what they say a person must have to get the job. What are the experiences and things they need for that job? All right, let's go with this one. Okay. This person needs 3+ years of related experience required. Well, we don't know what the experience is yet, but they do want some experience. Okay. We'll talk about that in a minute. Bachelor's degree strongly preferred. This is important language for students to understand. Strongly preferred means it's not required, which means those 3 years of experience don't have to come after the bachelor's degree.
First degree. Mm-hmm.
Right. Ability to relate effectively to diverse groups of people from all social and economic segments of the community. And within 30 days of hire, completion of child abuse prevention, all onboarding modules, and CPR first aid training. Okay. What's the job title?
Domestic violence shelter advocate.
Ooh, no.
I didn't think so.
No. Youth program director. Youth program director.
Look at that. And a direct level position.
And
you have to have a bachelor's degree. That's great.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you some of the things that they do, some of the functions. They ensure programs and services meet community needs. They recruit and hire diverse staff and volunteer teams. They're responsible to drive program growth and innovation, to provide models of relationship building skills in all interactions, manage the program, including developing and monitoring the program budget to meet fiscal objectives, compiling program statistics to monitor and evaluate the effectiveness and participation in program, and securing and scheduling the needed facilities. They also create the schedule and schedule classes, activities, and events. So in that part, we hear a lot of things that a psychology major will show up with, right? Which
Absolutely.
ones jumped out for you? You know what jumped. We know
research methods and statistics, right?
Exactly.
As we're playing with our data and all of these sorts of things. But no, that's a fantastic psych major job.
It is. And, we've got the diversity in there. So the cultural pieces and organization, courses in social psychology, industrial organizational could possibly, not possibly, but would definitely include some related content that someone could discuss in applying for that position. Okay. So let's go with another one. Okay. Qualifications include associate or bachelor of science degree in wellness and health promotion or related field. Now, I think that's an important comment always to make. Or related field is an important thing because that's saying psychology majors could fit. So they may be thinking wellness and health promotion specifically, but we know our psychology majors, especially if they have an opportunity to take health psychology or other health related courses, would be great applicants. Exceptional customer service skills, effective problem solving and decision making skills, excellent teamwork and collaboration skills, ability to work in a fast paced and ever changing environment, passionate about health and wellness. What do you think that job title is?
I don't know exactly what the title would be for this, but I'm imagining someone who does some programming for, say, the YMCA or a fitness organization. Maybe not.
Right. So I don't usually give the employer information, but I will tell you that the job title is Health and Wellness Community Activator. Okay. What a great title. I would never think, keyword search, let me put in Health and Wellness Community Activator, right? Yeah. But what a cool job title. So
Absolutely.
Again, somebody who has interests related to health and well-being. When we think about psychology, we tend to think mental health, mental illness. But if we think broader than that, psychology majors can really kind of branch out beyond the mental health to the overall health and wellness.
Absolutely. And, here, in addition to a psychology major, we might have someone who does a certificate in athletic coaching or does there are any number of things that you can pair with that psychology major that give you a set of skills that would be perfect for some of these careers. So.
And I'm glad you said that because I like to use job descriptions early. Because if we can see what's out there, we can think about taking other courses before it's the end. Before we don't want to wait to look for a job until we're hitting the end of our senior year. Because if we can see early on, and if you see a job you like, I say this all the time, you see a job you like, contact that employer and ask, do you have other opportunities? I'm not ready for that full-time job, but I would really like to be a part of your organization. What other opportunities are there? There might be an internship opportunity, a volunteer experience, a part-time position. So that's where, when we talked earlier, we saw the 3+ years experience. This is experience you could be getting along the way.
Yes.
It could also tell you that you don't actually like it after all. It looked great, but you got a chance to test it out before you graduated. I just want to talk a little bit about what this person does. They develop tailored one-on-one health coaching to individuals around their stated health goals, primarily in person, also via phone, email, or video chat. Boom. How awesome. They're creating one-on-one coaching, develop and track progress of the program, offer health risk assessment feedback and lifestyle coaching for individuals using Well Coach's platform. So there's much more, but I think that alone is like, this is actually one-on-one work. It's different from providing therapy, but it's helping people to be well.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And I think so many of our students who say, I just want to help people, they don't necessarily know how, right? They know they have that impulse to in some way be supporting and assisting others, but there's not necessarily a clear sense of what that's going to look like or what kind of help that might be. So
yeah,
lots of options.
Lots of options. I'm going to do one more.
Okay.
The qualifications, just 2. Well, that's not true. Under qualifications, they have 2 bullets, and then they say knowledge, skills, and abilities. So the person must have a bachelor's degree in a related field or have equivalent experience. 3 years, again, of experience in program delivery or volunteer management. Experience in community health and community mobilization is a plus. They need to be able to recognize and cultivate relationships. They need to be able to effectively collaborate with others. They need to be able to represent the association effectively to community partners. They need proven experience in community service development and sustained program integration, a general knowledge of community health, the ability and willingness to work some evenings. I love that. The ability to bend, stoop, lift, and transport. We know those those abilities are important and included in a lot of job descriptions. So we often think about, well, what do I need to know? But there are some very practical things around certain jobs. So what do you think this person's job title is?
Volunteer coordinator?
Coordinator. They call it a program coordinator.
Okay.
And the area, the area, content areas in Alzheimer's, working with patients with Alzheimer's in the community, right? So something very specific. It's not in the qualifications, but again, a psych major who understands, has an interest in that particular patient population would be fantastic. What a great opportunity. I want to just say about program coordinator, that is a very common job title. That is one thing I would tell people to search for. Just put in program coordinator, and you will be shocked at the diversity of applications of those coordination skills, and you will find something that looks interesting. So that is a great example of that. Let me ask you, what do you think is a livable wage for someone? Like, what do you think would be an appropriate salary for someone with a bachelor's degree living in your area? This is the part that's really difficult because it's obviously location specific, but
yeah. It is location specific. As an entry level, probably around 40,000.
All of these were 40 and above. Yep. And have benefits, which students often don't think about. What do we mean by benefits? Healthcare, right? They might even, some places might have some tuition assistance if someone wants to get other kinds of coursework under their belt, work towards a master's degree. So looking at those benefits, the healthcare retirement packages. So these are really good starting points for people. And then obviously you don't stay in that for the rest of your career. You either find another position in the organization that you're working towards, or you take those skills elsewhere. That is the norm now. But I think these sound like really, I wish I had known. Let's just say, I wish I had known.
Well, they sound like great jobs. And if I can throw in with program coordinator, case manager is another great title to search. Is we case manage all sorts of different things in all sorts of different organizations. So that's a good one. But the other thing that I would throw out there for students, here in Green Bay, our public school system is a majority minority district. We have a very culturally diverse community. Second language skills and skills related to cultural diversity, incredibly valuable and important. And then you throw in there things like folks working with Alzheimer's disease or folks working with children on the autism spectrum or what have you. The more classes that people can take related to language skills, diversity, and development, I think the better.
Agreed. Well, this was fun. Thank you for playing my game.
I appreciate. We're getting toward the afternoon part of the day, and ending my day on a game. That's a fun thing to get to do.
Yeah, but I don't set people up for success in that game. It's almost impossible. There's no way based on qualifications. But the point being that you can't look at the job title. The job title won't tell you what the qualifications are. And if we looked at those three positions side by side, we would say we heard the same kinds of skills. So we know what people need to be working on. Don't run away from collaboration skills. Those are important skills to be working on. So thank you so much for being with me today. I really did enjoy this conversation.
Well, thank you for having me.
And have a great day.
You too.